I help oversee Sunday worship ministries. So helping David out and Kim out with some of the things they do, and also helping coordinate connections and ushers and shelps and those different ministries. So that's one area. I also oversee the deacons, training them and meeting with them and helping them just as they kind of lead our church in serving and just different ministries they oversee. I also oversee facilities and campus. Campuses kind of helps set the policies and procedures for the church. So there's a lot of behind the scenes, and there's a lot of gifted folks who are helping out, different lawyers and folks familiar with different city regulations and things like that. So things from site search to legal issues to as we create waivers, and now heading up the COVID team, just kind of how we're going to respond to those things. So yeah, I'm involved in that. There's a lot of behind the scenes kind of things. And I help out with counseling and also help oversee the Compass ministry, kind of that I really enjoy, just helping parents like myself kind of navigate through the season of raising a teenager. Those are some of the bigger areas to help out with. Yeah.
Some of the areas I oversee are children's ministry, although really, Pastor Wayne does a great job leading that ministry. And, we have a lot of great help like Nicole Kosobayashi coming on board and others who've been committed to that ministry for many years. So I act more like a consultant, I think, when there's maybe a decision or just a situation to talk through. But and that was probably one of the biggest blessings. My time at Lighthouse is when Pastor Wayne was hired and really able to commit, have someone committed full time. He's just done a great job. But I had a lot of great memories from back at Torrance High School and even Magruder Middle School when we were teaching children's ministry and writing the lessons for that. So that's always an area that's dear to my heart. The other area that I help with a lot is the finances. So overseeing the church budget, spending, working with the ministries to do budget planning, helping with some of the forecasting and just seeing how the church's resources are used, trying to be as faithful a steward as we can be with those resources. And so keeping an eye on the church finances is another area that I work in. And then hopefully leading with small groups. I've discipled several guys over the years. Those are some of the ministries I've served in.
I oversee the teaching ministries in general, and so we kind of make sure that that's going in the right direction. I also oversee other ministries, so technically counseling and small groups, certain aspects of staff ministry, even women's ministry falls under my oversight. But at this point in the season of life in our church, we have people who are actually doing a lot of the work of ministry there. And I'm just making sure that they're going in the right direction. So counseling is a good example where Pastor Tim is really doing the heavy lift in this ministry. He's the one that's making it go. He's taken it way further than I ever did. And that's great. And so I try to encourage him and provide him with the help he needs, the resources he needs, maybe wisdom or things like that. But he's really doing the work of ministry. So at this point, a lot of it is making sure that the preaching ministries are taken care of, and then just kind of investing in the various leaders of the different groups.
So I think one ministry that I oversee is kind of the design ministry, or I'm kind of one of the people in charge. I think that kind of falls maybe under communications, but kind of responsible for a lot of the design work. So that's spread throughout a big team. As an elder, I'm in charge of church life. And so that kind of, I feel like that's the thing that things get put into when they don't fall into something else. So it's ministry, men's ministry, it's baptisms, it's membership. So if it doesn't have a place, it's weddings, it's funerals. So if it doesn't have a place, it kind of falls under me. But God has been so gracious to provide just such good people to be in. So I'm kind of over it, but I'm not responsible for each individual ministry. There's people, really great people that are involved in each ministry, kind of running it. And so, so kind of in charge of, that. And then, just kind of individually, I help to direct VBS each year and Fall Festival each year and kind of some of these one-time ministry type things. So,
as the elders of Lighthouse, we have kind of four main goals. It's to be able to lead, to be able to feed, to be able to protect, and to be able to care for the overall church family. And so I think our view as elders is that we're taking the 30,000 foot view, a level of, how we're caring for the church. And what I mean by that is we're not just looking at a specific ministry, but we have to take a look at all the different ministries and the church family as a whole and say, how's the church family doing? How are we caring for the church family? From the 30,000 foot level, you can look backwards about where we've come from, and then you get to look forward. Where's God taking Lighthouse? And that's some of the things that we need to do as elders, is to always look forward to saying, God, where do you want the church family to head towards? And that helps kind of lead and guide our sermon series, our small groups. It also trickles down to our fellowship groups as well. So that's kind of what we're trying to do and accomplish as the elders of Lighthouse.
Yeah, I'm not even sure exactly what my gifts are per se. um, I'm kind of more of a jack of all trades, master of none. You know, I can help out a little bit with worship, a little bit teaching, counseling, but you know, there's plenty of guys who are more gifted in all those areas than me. So I would say maybe the one area, because I'm a little involved in different areas, is, and with a little bit of medical background, and I can help out with kind of big picture. And that's maybe one of the things I try to bring, is how can we integrate all these things together and think ahead and on a big picture scale. I'm not as good with the details, you know, and my wife will tell you, you know. So maybe that's one of the things I try to help out with, is really bringing different ministries together and working together, thinking, you know, help think where's our church headed, and how can we use some of the strengths of our church and of our folks to really honor God and move in a good direction, if that makes sense.
You know, just someone who kind of helps in here and there, tries to pitch in different ways. You know, I don't say I'm not the best teacher or preacher, but, you know, I'm willing to serve, you know, when there's a need for that. And yeah, whether it's helping to lead, you know, make decisions for a ministry, or, you know, maybe someone to teach. And I guess teaching is one thing I enjoy, like children's ministry, a membership class, some seminars on different topics the church has asked me to teach on throughout the years. I think teaching in a classroom setting is probably one of the things I enjoy the most and have had the blessing of doing. Yeah, I'm willing to try to help out wherever there's a need.
One, you know, just getting to design and do things like that. And that's a blessing, because, you know, that's part of what I do vocationally, but, you know, just being able to do it for the church. There's a lot of joy doing it for the church.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of freedom, because I feel like people, whether it's the other elders or people in different ministries, they're always so generous to just let me kind of run wild. And that's really fun as an artist, just to be able to design how you want to design. You know, so vocationally, it's like, you know, do this, and you're kind of pigeonholed. But this is neat when you can just be creative, and God has given me some ability to you know, to teach and to lead, and trying to be faithful in those ways, that still very much growing in those areas. So.
We all say this, but we all mean it, is just having that front row seat to grace, right? And, you know, I still really enjoy the counseling aspect, and just seeing God working in individuals' hearts and bringing about growth and transformation at that level. And then we see it throughout the church family. That is such a blessing. Just seeing people come to Christ and get to know Christ, no doubt. Yeah, that's been a great joy and blessing. And just seeing God's faithfulness through all this. I think looking back 16 years now, 17 years that we've been as a church, I mean, I don't think any of us could have predicted this is where, well, definitely not COVID, but just in general where our church would be and what we'd be doing and the opportunities we'd have before us, and in the South Bay and LA and in Japan and Mexico, and just seeing that God is working in all that, you know, and it's such a blessing just be part of that and just kind of following his lead, for sure that. And I think just being part of a church family that really loves and cares for one another, I think has been a great blessing. I mean, truly my best friends are here at Lighthouse, the ones who I can really depend on and call on any time of day, you know, for anything. And I see those type of friendships just throughout our church and throughout the family. And I think that's such a blessing, even during the season where we can't really be as together as we'd like. I still see and hear so much of those joyful connections happening. Yeah, and so that's definitely a huge blessing as well. So
I love the people I work with. That's like a unique blessing. I mean, I've counseled enough people, talked with enough people that most people have friends at work, but for you to be able to say, like, I love everyone I work with, is just this unique blessing, you know? And so even the people that I'm technically overseeing, they're my friends, right? So I like to hear about what's going on or little things like that. And so I think that's one real blessing to what I do, is that you work with people you love. You want to see them succeed. Like I want to see, Tim take counseling way further than I ever took it. I love to see a guy like David who was a college student with us and then became an intern and then a pastor, and to see what he's doing for the church. I mean, that's a huge blessing. He's doing things I can never do. Is a skill set I don't have. So I think that's a blessing. From the teaching in particular, it is a privilege to share with people God's word. That people would give you 45 minutes of their undivided attention for the most part, and let you tell them why Christ is worthy to be loved and worshiped and trusted. It's like,
yeah.
I mean, if I told you, hey, can you give me 45 minutes so I can explain to you why the DH shouldn't be in the National League? No one wants to hear that, right? And no one's going to give me those 45, like not saying a word. But to be able to do that with Christ, just to get to tell people about Jesus is an immense blessing.
I think we as pastors kind of have that unique picture of what God is doing. It's just that front row seat to God's grace in people's lives. And so I think and I talk to it, and I'll be standing there with other pastors as baptism testimonies are being read, and it's just such a blessing. It touches our hearts when we have like anniversaries or we have the Christmas services. You just get to hear just testimony of God's faithfulness to his people, and that's such a blessing. And even just doing membership and getting to interview people and talking to people and seeing their hearts for God. I mean, it's really a unique perspective, and so that's been a blessing. And just seeing how God has grown us from this little church that met in a school, and he's just been faithful all these years, just to lead us and to guide us and protect us. And so, I think it's just being able to see big and small ways that God has, really loved on our church. I think that's been cool.
It kind of goes back to the beginning of our church plant. When you church plant, you have to wear just a ton of different hats. And so God knew this, that, really I'm a jack of all trades, but master of none. And it's so true. I really am not a master of anything. So I can do a lot of things just here and there. And that's probably what you need. You need a handyman for a church plant. And some of that DNA has stuck with me, which in certain ways led to the executive pastor position, where it's a little bit of here and there, making sure you work well on communication, kind of trying to do the behind the scenes things like writing guidelines and policies and making sure things are running smoothly. So all those things were done at the beginning of our church plant, but just not to the extent that we're doing now. And at the beginning of the church plant, I was also overseeing our youth ministry. That was actually my primary position, is working with youth. So it was great. After the first few years, we brought on an intern named David Lee, and David and I got to serve alongside one another. And there came a point where David was graduating, or going to graduate from seminary. And we wanted to keep David around, just a wonderful piece to our staff, a very small staff at the time. And so the elders prayerfully made the decision to move David into the youth pastor position, because that was the most natural fit. And God had placed upon the elders' hearts to begin putting more time and effort into the area of evangelism. And so that's where I stepped into the position of evangelism pastor. And that included at that time local as well as global. And since that time, over the years, we've split that up. So Pastor Euphemio oversees local evangelism, and then I still oversee global evangelism. So you can kind of see these roots from the early days of our church plant that are still there. But really, I'm just trying my best to serve the folks here at Lighthouse as well as the staff. And again, not a master of anything, Seichi.
I mean, most of the things that I mentioned earlier that I do didn't even exist when we started, right? I think for me personally, is a role that I really grew into, that God grew the role and grew me into. I think starting out, it was more survival in a sense. And personally, I saw myself as really just coming alongside and supporting Kim and Gavin and kind of seeing them more do the work. But then I think with time, I quickly realized that I was called to not just support, but be an elder, be a pastor, be someone that, that people would meet with, and that I would meet with when they had trials and struggles. And it was much more than just kind of being administrative and making sure ministries happen, but really walking alongside people. I think that was a real good lesson for me to learn early on, and then to keep that in mind as we grow and as we have more responsibilities and things to do. Just still, as a shepherd, just to be involved in people's daily lives and just to always be walking with people and letting people walk with me.
There's been a lot of changes. Probably the children's ministry illustrates that the best, where when we started Lighthouse, I think there were more adult helpers in the children's ministry classes than there were kids. I mean, we literally had maybe 10 kids, and we probably had double that in terms of volunteers who would serve, any given week or so. So we had this great ratio of adults to kids, and in those times, I was writing almost all the curriculum for the lessons, and then, maybe I would teach or some of the other teachers would teach, but I would write the curriculum and then teach probably at least twice a month. So I was very hands-on in the class, playing with the kids, teaching them, doing the crafts. As the church has grown and progressed, that role has turned more into helping with oversight. And then, I think the best way to describe it now is consulting with Pastor Wayne, when there's a rare issue that arises. But really, I'm very hands-off in that ministry now, as Pastor Wayne does, far majority of the work, and his, the other staff and volunteers and core leaders who, commit so much to that ministry. I get to kind of just sit back and see it run and just try to offer some, hopefully what's wisdom, based on experience, when it's needed. But as I think as the church has grown, it went from very hands-on to more of an oversight role. So that's why I still enjoy the opportunity to teach, like VBS this past summer, or doing things, teaching, doing the intros for the kids, the children's ministries, things like that, where still doing things that I enjoy, but that are just not as common as they used to be.
I think definitely, just for wisdom, trying to love the church well as we lead them, and kind of this unique time. But it's, definitely comes with its challenges. And so, we definitely all need wisdom. I think for our families, we really appreciate all the prayers that we receive for our families. I think for, pastors' kids and pastors' wives, there's some unique things there, challenges or expectations that can be tough sometimes. The church loves on them, but I think for them just trying to kind of wade through that and figure that all out, that can be a challenge. So I always appreciate prayers for the family. I mean, in many ways, we're just like every other family trying to figure out how to do Zoom school and how to go out and get our groceries and do all these kind of things and hunker down. But so just for the family, that'd be great.
Just be praying for my own walk. Every day I can continue to depend on God, on Christ, that I will never be content in my own ability or strengths, that the word will continue to be just alive and real to me every morning, and will continue to convict and transform my heart, that I may continue to just know the sinner that I am, and never be prideful or think I've arrived in any way. Be praying just that I continue to shepherd my family well. I definitely am far from the perfect dad, and or husband, and just be able to face my shortcomings and be willing to grow and listen to my own kids and my wife, and just really be intentional and proactive about loving them. For my interactions and relations with just the folks at church, that I can continue to find creative ways to love people and reach out to people and help disciple and mentor and keep accountable, and vice versa, that I can allow folks to be discipling, mentoring me and speaking into my life and keeping me accountable. Just having that humility and openness in my relationships and friendships. And then just in terms of ministry and church, I think we ask for this a lot, but just wisdom. I think navigating through this, it's not like there's necessarily this clear-cut, black and white, this is what we need to do next. I feel every step is like trying to think through all the different factors and trying to discern what makes most sense, what is most loving, what is most God-honoring, what is most biblical, and just wisdom to kind of figure that out, to recognize our own biases, our own fears, and what does it really mean to walk forward in faith and in love. Those would be maybe the key areas for me right now.